Chapter 21. Fear the comfy couch, fear the jailer's fruit platter, and tiny toilet. Nero's cell was the nicest place I'd ever been imprisoned in. I would have rated it 5 stars, absolute luxury, would die here again. From the high ceiling hung a chandelier. A chandelier, much too far out of reach for a prisoner to grab. Crystal pendants danced in the LED lights, casting diamond-shaped reflections across the eggshell white walls. In the back of the room sat a sink with gold fixtures and an automated toilet with a bidet, all shielded behind a privacy screen. What pampering! One of Nero's Persian carpets covered the floor. 2 plush Roman-style sofas were arranged in a V on either side of a coffee table, overflowing with cheese, crackers and fruit, plus a silver pitcher of water and 2 goblets, in case we prisoners wanted to toast our good luck. Only the front wall had a jailhouse look, since it was nothing but a row of thick metal bars, but even these were coated with, or perhaps made from, imperial gold. I spent the first 20 or 30 minutes alone in the cell. It was hard to measure time. I paced, I screamed, I demanded to see Meg. I banged a silver platter against the bars and howled into the empty corridor outside. Finally, as my fear and queasiness got the best of me, I discovered the joys of vomiting into a high-end toilet with a heated seat and multiple self-cleaning options. I was beginning to think Lugaselwa must have died. Why else was she not in the cell with me, as Nero had promised? How could she have survived the shock of double amputation when she was already so badly injured? Just as I was convincing myself I would die alone in this cell, with no one to help me eat the cheese and crackers, a door banged open somewhere down the hall, followed by heavy footsteps and lots of grunting. Gunter and another Germanus came into view, dragging Lugaselwa between them. The middle 3 bars of the cell entrance fell away, retracting into the floor as fast as sheathed blades. The guards pushed Lou inside, and the bars snapped closed again. I rushed to Lou's side. She curled on the Persian carpet, her body shivering and splattered with blood. Her leg braces had been removed, her face was paler than the walls, her wrists had been bandaged, but the wrappings were already soaked through. Her brow burned with fever. "She needs a doctor!" I yelled. Gunter leered at me. "Ain't you a healing god?" His friend snorted, and then the 2 of them lumbered back down the hall. Lou muttered. "Hold on," I said. Then I winced, realising that probably wasn't a sensitive thing to say, given her condition. I scrambled back to my comfy sofa and rummaged through my pack. The guards had taken my bow and quivers, including the arrow of Dodona, but they'd left me everything that wasn't obviously a weapon. My waterlogged ukulele and my backpack, including some med supplies Will had given me. Bandages, ointments, pills, nectar, ambrosia. Could Gauls take ambrosia? Could they take aspirin? I had no time to worry about that. I soaked some linen napkins in the ice water pitcher and wrapped them across Lou's head and neck to lower her temperature. I crushed some painkillers together with ambrosia and nectar and fed her some of the mush, though she could barely swallow. Her eyes were unfocused. Her shivering was getting worse. She croaked, "Meg." "Hush," I said, trying not to cry. "We'll save her, I swear, but first you have to heal." She whimpered, then made a high-pitched noise like a scream with no energy behind it. She had to be in unbelievable pain. She should have been dead already, but the Gaul were tough. "You need to be asleep for what comes next," I warned. I'm sorry, but I have to check your wrists. I have to clean the wounds and rebandage them or you'll die from sepsis." I had no idea how I was going to accomplish this without her dying from blood loss or shock, but I had to try. The guards had tied off her wrists sloppily. I doubted they'd bothered with sterilisation. They had slowed the bleeding, but Lou would still die unless I intervened. I grabbed another napkin with a vial of chloroform, one of Will's more dangerous medkit components. Using it was a huge risk, but the desperate circumstances left me little choice, unless I wanted to knock Lou over the head with a cheese platter. I moved the soaked napkin over her face. "No," she said feebly. "Can't. It's either this or pass out from the pain as soon as I touch those wrists." She grimaced and then nodded. I pressed the cloth against her nose and mouth. 2 breaths and her body went limp. For her own sake, I prayed she would stay unconscious. I worked as fast as I could. My hands were surprisingly steady. The medical knowledge came back out of instinct. I didn't think about the grave injuries I was looking at, nor the amount of blood. I just did the work. Tourniquet. Sterilise. I would have tried to reattach her hands, despite the hopeless odds, but they hadn't bothered to bring them. Sure, give me a chandelier and a selection of fruit, but no hands. "Cauterize," I mumbled to myself. My right hand burst into flame. At that time I didn't find this strange. A little spark of my old sun god power? Sure, why not? I sealed the stumps of Lou's poor wrists, slathered them with healing ointment, then rebandaged them properly, leaving her with 2 stubby Q-tips instead of hands. "I'm so sorry," I said. Guilt weighed me down like a suit of armour. I'd been so suspicious of Lou, when all the time she'd been risking her life trying to help. Her only crime was underestimating Nero, just as we all had, and the price she'd paid. You have to understand, to a musician like me, no punishment could be as bad as losing one's hands. To no longer be able to play the keyboard or the fretboard, to never again summon music with one's fingers. Making music was its own sort of divinity. I imagine Lou felt the same way about her fighting skills. She would never again hold a weapon. Nero's cruelty was beyond measure. I wanted to cauterize the smirk off his smug face. Attend to your patient, I chided myself. I grabbed pillows from the sofa and positioned them around Lou, trying to make her as comfortable on the carpet as I could. Even if I'd wanted to risk moving her to the sofa, I doubted I would have had the strength. I dabbed her forehead with more cold cloths. I dribbled water and nectar into her mouth. Then I put my hand against her carotid artery and concentrated with all my might. Heal. 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 Perhaps it was my imagination, but I thought some of my old power stirred. My fingers warmed against her skin. Her pulse began to stabilise. Her breathing came easier. Her fever lessened. I had done what I could. I crawled across the floor and climbed onto my sofa, my head swimming with exhaustion. How much time had passed? I didn't know if Nero had decided to destroy New York or wait until the forces of Camp Half-Blood came within range. The city could be burning around me right now, and I'd see no sign of it in this windowless cell within Nero's self-contained tower. The AC would keep blowing, the chandelier would keep glittering, the toilet would keep flushing. And Meg, oh gods, what would Nero be doing to rehabilitate her? I couldn't bear it. I had to get up. I had to save my friend. But my exhausted body had other ideas. My vision turned watery. I keeled over sideways, and my thoughts sank into a pool of shadow. Hey, man. The familiar voice seemed to come from half a world away, over a weak satellite connection. As the scene resolved, I found myself sitting at a picnic table on the beach in Santa Monica. Nearby stood the fish taco shack where Jason, Piper, Meg and I had eaten our last meal before infiltrating Caligula's fleet of mega yachts. Across the table sat Jason Grace, glowing and insubstantial like a video projected against a cloud. Jason? My voice was a ruined sob. You're here. His smile flickered. His eyes were nothing but smudges of turquoise dye. Still, I could feel the quiet strength of his presence, and I heard the kindness in his voice. Not really, Apollo. I'm dead. You're dreaming. But it's good to see you. I looked down, not trusting myself to speak. Before me sat a plate of fish tacos that had been turned into gold like the work of King Midas. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't like it. I'm so sorry, I managed at last. No, Jason said. I made my choice. You're not to blame. You don't owe me anything except to remember what I said. Remember what's important. You're important, I said. Your life. Jason tilted his head. I mean, sure, but if a hero isn't ready to lose everything for a greater cause, is that person really a hero? He weighted the word person subtly, as if to stress it could mean a human, a faun, a dryad, a griffin, a pandos, even a god. But I struggled to find a counter-argument. I wanted so badly to reach across the table, grip Jason's wrists and pull him back into the world of the living. But even if I could, I realised I wouldn't have been doing it for Jason. He was at peace with his choices. I would have been bringing him back for my own selfish reasons, because I didn't want to deal with the sorrow and grief of having lost him. All right, I relented. A fist of pain that had been clenching in my chest for weeks began to loosen. All right, Jason. We miss you, though. His face rippled into a coloured smoke. I miss you too. All of you. Apollo, do me a favour. Beware Mithras's servant, the lion, snake entwined. You know what it is and what it can do. What? No, I don't. Tell me, please. Jason managed one last faint smile. I'm just a dream in your head, man. You've already got the info. I'm just saying, there's a price for bargaining with the Guardian of the Stars. Sometimes you have to pay that price. Sometimes you have to let someone else do it. This cleared up absolutely nothing, but the dream allowed me no more time for questions. Jason dissolved. My golden fish tacos turned to dust. The Santa Barbara coastline melted, and I woke with a start on my comfy sofa. You alive? Asked a hoarse voice. Lou lay on the opposite couch. How she'd got herself there from the floor I couldn't imagine. Her cheeks and eyes were sunken. Her bandaged stumps were speckled with brown polka dots where new blood had seeped through. But she looked a bit less pale, and her eyes were remarkably clear. I could only conclude that my godly healing powers, wherever they had come from, must have done some good. I was so surprised that I needed a moment to find my voice. I should be asking you that question. How is the pain? She lifted her stumps gingerly. What, these? I've had worse. My gods, I marvelled. A sense of humour. You really are indestructible. Her facial muscles tensed, maybe an attempt to smile or just a reaction to her constant searing agony. Meg, what happened to her? How do we find her? I couldn't help but admire her single-mindedness. Despite her pain and her unfair punishment, Lou was still focused on helping our young friend. I'm not sure, I said. We'll find her, but first you have to get your strength back. When we break out of here, you'll have to be able to move under your own power. I don't think I can carry you. No? Lou asked. I was looking forward to piggyback ride. Wow, I guess Gauls get punchy when they suffer life-threatening injuries. Of course, the whole idea of us busting out of our cell was absurd. Even if we managed it, we were in no shape to rescue Meg or fight the Emperor's forces. But I couldn't lose hope, especially when my no-handed companion was still able to crack jokes. Also, my dream of Jason had reminded me that the Emperor's fasces was hidden somewhere on this floor of the tower, guarded by the snake-entwined lion, the guardian of the stars, Mithras' servant, whatever that meant. It had to be close, and if it required a price for letting us kick Nero's rod of immortality into splinters, I was willing to pay it. I've got some ambrosia left. I turned and groped for my med pack. You need to eat. The door at the end of the corridor slammed open. Gunter appeared outside our cell, holding a silver tray laden with sandwiches and assorted canned sodas. He grinned, showing off all 3 of his teeth. Lunch. The cell's middle bars dropped with the speed of a guillotine. Gunter slid the tray through, and the bar snapped shut again before I could even think of making a move for our captor. I needed food badly, but just looking at the sandwiches made my stomach roil. Someone had trimmed the crusts off the bread. They were cut into squares rather than triangles. This is how you can tell when your lunch has been prepared by barbarians. Get your strength back, Gunter said cheerfully. Don't die before the party. Party? I asked, feeling the tiniest spark of hope. Not because parties were fun, or because I liked cake. Both were true. But because if Nero had postponed his big celebration, then perhaps he hadn't yet pressed his doomsday button. Oh, yes, Gunter said, tonight. Torture for you both, and then we burn down the city. With that happy thought, Gunter strolled back down the hall, chuckling to himself, leaving us with our tray of barbarian sandwiches. Chapter 22. I will go to sleep, to save everyone I love. Don't thank me, it's cool. Gods aren't great with deadlines. The concept of having a limited time to do something just doesn't make much sense to an immortal. Since turning into Lester Papadopoulos, I'd got used to the idea, go here by this date or the world ends, get this item by next week or everyone you know will die. Still, I was shocked to realise that Nero was planning to burn down New York that very evening, with cake, festivities and a good deal of torture, and there was nothing I could do about it. I stared through the bars after Gunter left. I waited for him to skip back into view and yell, just kidding! But the hallway remained empty. I could see very little of it except for blank white walls and a single security camera mounted on the ceiling, staring at me with its glossy black eye. I turned to Lou. I've determined that our situation sucks. Thanks. She crossed her stumps over her chest like a pharaoh. I needed that perspective. There's a security camera out there. Sure. Then, how were you planning on breaking us out? You would have been seen. Lou grunted. That's only one camera. Easy to evade. The residential areas? They're completely covered with surveillance from every angle, mic'd for sound, with motion detectors on all entrances. I get the idea. It infuriated me, but did not surprise me, that Nero's family would be under heavier surveillance than his prisoners. After all, this was a man who'd killed his own mother. Now he was raising his own brood of junior despots. I had to get to Meg. I shook the bars, just to say I'd tried. They didn't budge. I needed a burst of godly strength to Apollo smash my way out, but I couldn't rely on my powers to pay heed to what I wanted. Trudging back to my sofa, I glared at the offensive sandwiches and sodas. I tried to imagine what Meg was going through right now. I pictured her in an opulent room much like this one, minus the bars, perhaps, but a cell nonetheless. Her every move would be recorded, her every conversation overheard. No wonder back in the old days she preferred to roam the alleys of Hell's Kitchen, accosting thugs with bags of rotten vegetables and adopting former gods to be her servants. She wouldn't have had that outlet now. She wouldn't have me or Lucaselwa by her side. She would be utterly surrounded and utterly alone. I had a sense of how Nero's mind games worked. As a god of healing, I knew something about psychology and mental health, though I'll admit I did not always apply best practices to myself. Having unleashed the beast, Nero would now feign kindness. He would try to convince Meg that she was home. If she just let him help her, she would be forgiven. Nero was his own good cop, bad cop, the consummate manipulator. The thought of him trying to comfort a young girl he had just traumatized made me sick to my core. Meg had got away from Nero once before. Defying his will must have taken more strength and courage than most gods I knew would ever possess. But now, thrust back into her old abusive environment, which Nero had passed off as normal for most of her childhood, she would need to be even stronger not to crumble. It would be so easy for her to forget how far she'd gone. Remember what's important. Jason's voice echoed in my head, but Nero's words were knocking around in there too. We can't change thousands of years of our nature so quickly, can we? I knew my anxiety about my own weakness was getting mixed up with my anxiety about Meg. Even if I somehow made my way back to Mount Olympus, I didn't trust myself to hold on to the important things I'd learned as a mortal. That made me doubt Meg's ability to stay strong in her old toxic home. The similarities between Nero's household and my family on Mount Olympus made me increasingly uneasy. The idea that we gods were just as manipulative, just as abusive as the worst Roman emperor. Surely that couldn't be true. Oh wait, yes it could. Ugh, I hated clarity. I preferred a softer Instagram filter on my life. Amaro maybe, or Perpetua. We will get out of here. Lou's voice shook me from my miserable thoughts. Then we'll help Meg. Given her condition, this was a bold statement. I realised she was trying to lift my spirits. It felt unfair that she had to, and even more unfair that I needed it so much. The only response I could think of was, "Do you want a sandwich?" She glanced down at the platter. "Yeah, cucumber and cream, please, if there is one. The chef does a good cucumber and cream cheese." I found the appropriate flavour. I wondered if, back in ancient times, roving bands of Celtic warriors had ridden into battle with their packs full of cucumber and cream cheese sandwiches. Perhaps that had been the secret to their success. I had a few bites, but she became impatient. "Just set it on my chest. I'll figure it out. I have to start sometime." She used her stumps to manoeuvre the food towards her mouth. How she could do this without passing out from pain I didn't know, but I respected her wishes. My son, Asclepius, god of medicine, used to chide me about helping those with disabilities. You can help them if they ask, but wait for them to ask. It's their choice to make, not yours. For a god, this was a hard thing to understand, much like deadlines, but I left Lou to her meal. I picked out a couple of sandwiches for myself, ham and cheese, egg salad. It had been a long time since I'd eaten. I had no appetite, but I would need energy if we were going to get out of here. Energy and information. I looked at Lou. "You mentioned microphones?" Her sandwich slipped from between her stumps and landed in her lap. With the slightest of frowns, she began the slow process of corralling it again. "Surveillance mics, you mean? What about them? Are there any in this cell?" Lou looked confused. "You want to know if the guards are listening to us? I don't think so, unless they've installed mics in the last 24 hours. Nero doesn't care what prisoners chat about. He doesn't like it when people whine and complain. He's the only one allowed to do that." That made perfect Nero-ish sense. I wanted to discuss plans with Lou, if for no other reason than to raise her spirits, to let her know that my terrific troglodyte tunnelling team might be on their way to scuttle Nero's Greek fire sewer super soakers, which would mean that Lou's sacrifice had not been completely in vain. Still, I would have to be careful what I said. I didn't want to assume we had privacy. We'd underestimated Nero too many times already. "The Emperor didn't seem to know about the other thing," I said. Lou's sandwich toppled into her lap again. "You mean the other thing is happening? You were able to arrange it?" I could only hope we were talking about the same other thing. Lou had instructed us to arrange an underground sabotage of some sort, but for obvious reasons I hadn't had a chance to tell her specifics about Nico, Will, Rachel and the Troglodytes, which by the way would make the worst band name of all time. "I hope so," I said, assuming everything went according to plan. I did not add, "and the Troglodytes didn't eat my friends because we brought evil red cattle into their encampment." But let's be honest, so far things have not gone according to plan. Lou picked up her sandwich again, this time with more dexterity. "I don't know about you, but I've got Nero exactly where I want him." I had to smile. My gods, this Gaul. I had gone from disliking and distrusting her to being ready to take a bullet for her. I wanted her at my side, hands or no, as we took down the Emperor and saved Meg. And we would do it, if I could muster even a little bit of Lou's toughness. "Nero should fear you," I agreed. "Let's assume the other thing is happening. Let's also assume we can get out of here and take care of the, other thing." Lou rolled her eyes. "You mean the Emperor's fasces?" I winced. "Yes, fine, that. It would be helpful if I had more information about its protector. Jason called it a guardian of the stars, a creature of Mithras. But, wait, who is Jason?" I didn't want to revisit that painful subject, but I gave her the basics, then explained what I had discussed with the son of Jupiter in my dream. Lou tried to sit up. Her face turned the colour of putty, before making her tattoos darken to purple. Oof. Oh. She reclined again. Mithras, eh? Haven't heard that name in a while. Lots of Roman officers worshipped him back in the day, but I never took to those Persian gods. You had to join his cult to find out all the secret handshakes and whatnot. Elite, members-only society, blah blah. The Emperor was an automatic member, of course, which makes sense. Because? She chewed her cucumber sandwich. Explains how Nero would have found this guardian. I don't know what it is. I saw it only once, when Nero installed it, I guess you'd say, years ago. She shuddered. Never want to see it again. That lion's face, those eyes, like it could see everything about me, like it was challenging me to, She shook her head. You're right. We need more information if we're going to beat it, and we need to know how Meg is doing. Why was she looking at me so expectantly? That would be great, I agreed, but since we're stuck in a cell... You just told me you had a dream vision. Do you have those often? Well, yes, but I don't control them, at least not well. Lou snorted. Typical Roman. Greek. Whatever, dreams are a vehicle, like a chariot. You have to drive them. You can't let them drive you. You want me to, what, go back to sleep? Gather more information in my dreams? Her eyelids started to droop. Perhaps the word sleep had reminded her body that this was a great idea. In her condition, just being awake a few hours and eating a sandwich would have been equivalent to running a marathon. Sounds like a plan, Lou agreed. If it's lunchtime now, that gives us, 7, 8 hours before sunset? Nero will have his party at sunset, I'm sure. Best time of the day to watch a city burn. Wake me up when you know more. But what if I can't get to sleep? And if I do, who's going to wake me up? Lou started to snore. A tiny piece of cucumber was stuck to her chin, but I decided to leave it there. She might want it later. I sat back on my sofa and stared at the chandelier twinkling cheerfully above. A party tonight for the burning of Manhattan. Nero would torture us. Then I imagined he would sacrifice me in one way or another to appease Python to seal their alliance. Had to think fast and move faster. I needed my powers. Strength to bend bars or break through walls. Fire to melt Gunther's face the next time he brought us crustless sandwiches. I did not need a nap. And yet Lou wasn't wrong. Dreams could be vehicles. As the god of prophecy, I'd often sent visions to those who needed them, warnings, glimpses of the future, suggestions for what sort of temple incense I liked best. I'd driven dreams back right into people's heads, but since I'd been mortal, I'd lost that confidence. I'd let my dreams drive me, rather than taking the reins like when I drove the sun chariot. My team of fiery horses could always feel when their driver was weak or uncertain. Poor Paphaon had found that out the hard way. Dreams were no less ornery. I needed to see what was happening with Meg. I needed to see this guardian that watched the Emperor's fasces, so I could figure out how to destroy it. I needed to know whether Nico, Will and Rachel were safe. If I took the reins of my dreams and yelled, "Giddy up!" what would happen? At the very least, I would have unsettling nightmares. At worst, I might drive my mind over the cliffs of insanity and never wake up. But my friends were counting on me. So I did the heroic thing. I closed my eyes and went to sleep. Chapter 23. Dream chariot, go! Out of my way, I'm a god! Honk honk, beep beep, zoom. Driving the dream chariot did not go well. If the dream police had been on patrol, they would have pulled me over and given me a ticket. Immediately, a psychic crosswind caught my consciousness. I tumbled through the floor, falling past stairwells and offices and broom closets, swirling into the bowels of the tower like I'd been flushed down the cosmic toilet, which is a disgusting plumbing fixture, by the way. No one ever cleans it. Go up, I willed my dream, but I couldn't seem to find the reins. I plummeted straight through a vat of Greek fire. That was different. I hit the tunnels below Manhattan, glancing around desperately for any sign of my friends and the troglodytes, but I was travelling too fast, spinning like a pinwheel. I broke through into the labyrinth and hurtled sideways, swept along by a current of superheated ether. I can do this, I told myself. It's just like driving a chariot, except with no horses. Or chariot, or body. I ordered my dream to take me to Meg, the person I most wanted to see. I imagined my hands reaching out, grasping reins. Just when I thought I had them, my dreamscape stabilised. I found myself back in the caverns of Delphi, volcanic gases layering the air, the dark shape of Python moving heavily in the shadows. So, I have you again, he gloated. You shall perish. I don't have time for you right now. My voice surprised me almost as much as it did the reptile. What? Gotta go. I lashed the reins of my dream. How dare you? You cannot. I rocketed into reverse, like I was tied to a rubber band. Why backwards? I hated sitting backwards in a moving vehicle, but I suppose the dream was still trying to show me who was boss. I did a roller coaster rewind through the labyrinth, the mortal tunnels, the stairwells of the tower. Finally, I lurched to a stop. My stomach clenched and I retched up. Well, whatever ethereal spirit stuff one can retch in the dream world. My head and stomach orbited each other like wobbly lava planets. I found myself on my knees in an extravagant bedroom. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Midtown, all the way to the Hudson River. The cityscape was still mercifully untorched. Meg McCaffrey was busy trashing the bedroom. Even without her blade, she was doing an A-plus demolition job with a broken chair leg, which she swung wildly into just about everything. Meanwhile, a Germanus stood blocking the only exit, his arms folded, his expression unimpressed. A woman in an old-fashioned black and white maid's uniform wrung her hands and winced every time something went crash. She held a stack of what looked like party dresses draped over one arm. "Miss," said the maid, "if you could just choose an outfit for tonight. Perhaps if you didn't... Oh, that was an antique. No, that's fine. I'll get another. Very well, miss. If you don't like those bed linens, I can... there's no need to shred them, miss." Meg's tantrum raised my spirits considerably. That's it, my friend, I thought. Give them Tartarus. Meg threw her broken chair leg into a lamp, then picked up another whole chair and raised it over her head, ready to hurl it at the window. A faint knock on the bedroom door made her freeze. The Germanus stepped aside, opened the door, and bowed as Nero swept into the room. "Oh, my dear, I'm so sorry." The Emperor's voice oozed sympathy. "Come, sit with me." He moved smoothly to the bed and sat on the edge, patting the ripped comforter next to him. I silently rooted for Meg to brain him with the chair. He was right there in easy reach. But I realised that was Nero's intention, to make himself seem to be at Meg's mercy, to make her responsible for choosing violence, and if she did, he would be free to punish her. She put down the chair, but she didn't go to Nero. She turned her back and crossed her arms. Her lips trembled. I wanted so badly to go to her, to shield her. I wanted to drive my dream chariot into Nero's face, but I could only watch. "I know you feel terrible," Nero said, "after what you did to your friend." She wheeled around. "After what I did?" She picked up the chair again and threw it across the room, but not at Nero. It wanged off the window, leaving a smudge but no cracks. I caught the flicker of a smile on Nero's face, a smile of satisfaction, before his expression fixed back into a mask of sympathy. "Yes, dear, this anger comes from guilt. You led Apollo here. You understood what that meant, what would happen, but you did it anyway. That must be so painful, knowing you brought him to his end." Her arms trembled. No, you cut off..." She gagged, clearly unable to say the words. She stared down at her own fists, clenched as if they might fly off her wrists if left unattended. "You can't blame yourself," Nero said, in a tone that somehow implied, "This is all your fault. Lugaselwa made the wrong choice. You know that. You must have understood what would happen. You are too smart to be blind. We've talked about consequences so often." He sighed with regret. Perhaps Cassius was too harsh, taking her hands. He tilted his head. "If you like, I can punish him for that." "What?" Meg was shaking, as if no longer sure where to direct the giant cannon of her anger. "No, it wasn't him. It was..." She choked on the obvious answer. "You." With Nero sitting right in front of her, talking in a gentle tone, giving her all his full attention, she faltered. "Meg," I shouted, but no sound came forth. "Meg, keep smashing things." "You have a kind heart," Nero said with another sigh. "You care about Apollo, about Lou. I understand that, and when you unleash the beast..." He spread his hands. "I know that is unsettling, but it isn't over, Meg. Will you sit with me? I'm not asking for a hug or for you to stop being angry, but I have some news that may make you feel better." He patted the mattress again. The maid wrung her hands. The Germanus picked his teeth. Meg wavered. I could imagine the thoughts racing through her head. "Is the news about Apollo? Will you offer to let him go if I cooperate? Is Lou still alive? Will she be released? And if I don't play along with your wishes, will I be endangering them?" Nero's unspoken message seemed to hang in the air. "This is all your fault, but you can still make it right." Slowly, Meg moved to the bed. She sat, her posture stiff and guarded. I wanted to lunge between her and Nero, to insert myself in the gap and make sure he could not get any closer, but I feared his influence was worse than physical. He was worming his way into her mind. "Here is the good news, Meg," he said. "We will always have each other. I will never abandon you. You can never make a mistake so great I will not take you back. Lou betrayed you when she betrayed me. Apollo was unreliable, selfish, and, dare I say, a narcissist. But I know you. I have raised you. This is your home." Oh gods, I thought. Nero was so good at being evil, and so evil at being good. He made the words lose their meaning. He could tell you the floor was the ceiling with such conviction you might start believing it, especially since any disagreement would unleash the beast. I marvelled how such a man could rise to the Emperor of Rome. Then I marvelled how such a man could ever lose control of Rome. It was easy to see how he'd got the mobs on his side. Meg shivered, but whether from rage or despair I couldn't be sure. There, there. Nero put an arm around her shoulders. You can cry, it's all right, I'm here. I could not. A cold knot formed in my gut. I suspected that as soon as Meg's tears fell, the game would be over. All the independence she'd built and fought so hard to maintain would crumble. She would fold herself against Nero's chest, just as she'd done as a little girl, after Nero killed her real father. The Meg I knew would disappear under the twisted, tortured mess Nero had spent years cultivating. The scene lost cohesion, perhaps because I was too upset to control my dream, or perhaps I simply couldn't bear to watch what happened next. I tumbled down through the tower, floor after floor, trying to regain the reins. I'm not done, I insisted. I need more information. Unfortunately, I got it. I stopped in front of a golden door. Never a good sign, golden doors. The dream swept me inside a small vault. I felt as if I'd entered a reactor core. Intense heat threatened to burn my dream self into a cloud of dream ashes. The air smelled heavy and toxic. Before me, floating above a pedestal of Stygian iron, was the fasces of Nero. A 5 feet tall golden axe, bundled with wooden rods and lashed together by gold cords. The ceremonial weapon pulsed with power, exponentially more than the 2 fascist Megan I had destroyed at Sutro Tower. The meaning of this dawned on me, whispered into my brain like a line of Python's poisoned prophecy. The 3 emperors of the triumvirate hadn't just linked themselves through a corporation. Their life forces, their ambitions, their greed and malice had entwined over the centuries. By killing Commodus and Caligula, I had consolidated all the power of the triumvirate into the fasces of Nero. I had made the surviving emperor 3 times as powerful and harder to kill. Even if the fasces were unguarded, destroying it would be difficult. And the fasces was not unguarded. Behind the glowing axe, his hands spread as if in benediction, the guardian stood. His body was humanoid, 7 feet tall. Patches of gold fur covered his muscular chest, arms and legs. His feathery white wings reminded me of one of Zeus's wind spirits, or the angels that Christians like to paint. His face, however, was not angelic. He had the shaggy maned visage of a lion, ears rimmed with black fur, mouth open to reveal fangs and a panting red tongue. His huge golden eyes radiated a sort of sleepy, self-confident strength. But the strangest thing about the Guardian was the serpent that encircled his body, from ankles to neck, a slivering spiral of green flesh that corkscrewed around him like an endless escalator, a snake with no head or tail. The lion man saw me. My dream state was nothing to him. Those gold eyes locked onto me and would not let me go. They turned me and examined me as if I were a trog boy's crystal sphere. He communicated wordlessly. He told me he was the Leontocephaline, a creation of Mithras, a Persian god so secretive even we Olympians had never really understood him. In Mithras's name, the Leontocephaline had overseen the movement of the stars and the phases of the zodiac. He had also been the keeper of Mithras's great sceptre of immortality, but that had been lost eons ago. Now, the Leontocephalian had been given a new job, a new symbol of power to guard. Just looking at him threatened to tear my mind apart. I tried to ask him questions. I understood that fighting him was impossible. He was eternal. He could no more be killed than one could kill time. He guarded the immortality of Nero, but wasn't there anymore. Anyway? Oh yes, he could be bargained with. I saw what he wanted. The realization made my soul curl up like a squashed spider. Nero was clever, horribly, evilly clever. He had set a trap with his own symbol of power. He was cynically betting that I would never pay the price. At last, his point made, the Leontocephaline released me. My dream self snapped back into my body. I sat up in bed, gasping and soaked in sweat. About time, Lou said. Incredibly, she was on her feet, pacing the cell. My healing power must have done more than just soothe her amputation wounds. She wobbled a bit, but she did not look like someone who'd been using crutches and leg braces just a day ago. Even the bruises on her face had faded. You look better, I noted. How long was I out? Too long. Gunter brought dinner an hour ago. She nodded to a new platter of food on the floor. He said he'd be back soon to get us for the party, but the fool was careless. He left us silverware. She brandished her stumps. Oh gods, what had she done? Somehow she had managed to attach a fork to one stump and a knife to the other. She had inserted the handles into the folds of her bandages, then fastened them in place with... Wait, was that my surgical tape? I looked at the foot of my bed. Sure enough, my pack was open, the contents scattered about. I tried to ask how and why at the same time, so it came out as, who I? If you have enough time, some tape and a set of working teeth, you can do a lot, Lou said proudly. I couldn't wait for you to wake up. Didn't know when Gunter would be back. Sorry about the mess. You can help. She tested her silverware attachments with a few kung fu jabs. I tied these babies on as tight as I could, but you can wrap them one more time. I have to be able to use them in combat. She plopped down on the sofa next to me. While you work, you can tell me what you learned. I was not about to argue with someone who could poke me in the eye with a fork. I was dubious about the effectiveness of her new combat attachments, but I didn't say anything. I understood that this was about Luga Selwa taking charge of her situation, not giving up, doing what she could with what she had. When you've gone through a life-changing shock, positive thinking is the most effective weapon you can wield. I wrapped her utensils more tightly in place while explaining what I'd seen in my dream drive. Meg trying not to crumble under the influence of Nero, the Emperor's fasces floating in its radioactive room, and the Leon Tessafon waiting for us to try and take it. We'd best hurry then, Lou grimaced. Tighter with that tape. My efforts obviously hurt her, judging from the crinkles around her eyes, but I did as she asked. Right, she said, swiping the air with her utensils. That'll have to do. I tried for a supportive smile. I wasn't sure Captain Fork and Knife would have much luck against Gunter or the Leontocephaline, but if we met a hostile ribeye steak, Lou would be queen of the combat. And no sign of the other thing? She asked. I wished I could have told her eyes. I had wanted so badly to see visions of the entire troglodyte corporation digging into Nero's basement and disabling his fire vats. I would have settled for a dream of Nico, Will and Rachel charging to our rescue, yelling loudly and waving noisemakers. Nothing, I said. But we still have time. Yeah, Lou agreed. Minutes and minutes. Then the party starts and the city burns. But okay, let's concentrate on what we can do. I have a plan to get us out of here. A cold shiver ran down my neck as I thought about my silent conversation with the guardian of the fasces. And I have a plan for what we do when we get out. Then we both said together, You're not going to like it? Oh, joy, I sighed. Let's hear yours first. Chapter 24. Fie upon Nero. Who wants not my arrow speech? I can relate, though. Lou was right. I hated her plan, but since time was short and Gunter might show up any minute with our party hats and various torture devices, I agreed to do my part. Full disclosure, I also hated my plan. I explained to Lou what the Leontocephaline would demand in exchange for the fasces. Lou glowered like an angry water buffalo. You're sure? I'm afraid so. He guards immortality, so he expects a sacrifice of immortality. The words hung in the air like cigar smoke, cloying and suffocating. This was what all my trials had led to, this choice. This was why Python had been laughing at me for months in my dreams. Nero had made the cost of his destruction, giving up the one thing I wanted most. To destroy him, I'd have to forfeit my own godhood forever. Lou scratched her chin with her fork hand. We must help Meg, whatever the cost. Agreed. She nodded grimly. Okay, then, that's what we'll do. I swallowed the coppery taste in my mouth. I was ready to pay the price. If it meant freeing Meg from the beast, freeing the world, freeing Delphi, then I would. But it would have been nice if Lou had protested just a little on my behalf. Oh no, Apollo, you can't. I suppose our relationship was past the point of sugarcoating, though. Lou was too practical for that. She was the sort of woman who didn't whine about getting her hands cut off. She just taped silverware to her stumps and got on with business. She wasn't going to give me a pat on the back for doing the right thing, however painful it was. Still, I wondered if I was missing something. I wondered if we were really on the same page. Lou had a faraway look in her eyes, like she was calculating losses in a battlefield. Maybe what I sensed was her worry about Meg. We both knew that, under most circumstances, Meg was fully capable of rescuing herself. But with Nero, I suspected Lou, like me, wanted Meg to be strong enough to save herself. We couldn't make the hard choices for her, yet it was excruciating to stand by while Meg's sense of independence was tested. Lou and I were like nervous parents, leaving our child at school for the first day of kindergarten. Except in this case, the kindergarten teacher was a homicidal megalomaniac emperor. Call us crazy, but we didn't trust what Meg might learn in that lesson. Lou met my eyes one last time. I imagined her packing away her doubts and fears in her mental saddlebags for later, when she had time for them, along with her cucumber and cream cheese sandwiches. Let's get to work, she told me. It wasn't long before we heard the hallway door bang open, and heavy footsteps approaching the cell. Look casual, Lou ordered, reclining on her couch. I leaned against the wall and whistled the tune to Man-Eater. Gunter appeared, a batch of neon yellow zip-tie restraints in his hand. I pointed a finger gun at him. Hey, what's up? He scowled. Then he looked at Lou with her new silverware attachments, and his face split into a grin. What are you supposed to be? Lou raised her fork and knife. Thought I'd carve you up like the turkey you are. Gunter started to giggle, which was disturbing in a man of his size. Stupid, Lou. You have fork and knife hands. He tossed the zip ties through the cell's bars. You, ugly boy, tie your arms behind her back. Then I tie you. No, I said. I don't think so. His mirth dissipated like foam on skink soup. What you say? You want to tie us up, I said very slowly. You'll have to do it yourself. He frowned, trying to make sense of the fact that a teenage boy was telling him what to do. Clearly he'd never had children. I will call other guards. Lou snorted. You do that? Can't handle us yourself? I'm too dangerous. She held up her knife hand in what could have been taken as a rude gesture. Gunter's face turned a mottled red. You're not the boss of me no more, Lucas Selwer. Not the boss of me, Lou mimicked. Go on, get help. Tell them you couldn't tie up a weakling boy and a no-handed woman by yourself. Or come in here, and I will tie you up. Her plan depended on Gunter taking the bait. He needed to come inside. With his barbarian manhood in question and his honour insulted by a rude piece of silverware, he did not disappoint. The middle bars of the cell retracted into the floor. Gunter strode through. He didn't notice the salve I'd slathered across the threshold, and let me assure you, Will Solis's burn ointment is slippery stuff. I'd been wondering which direction Gunter might fall. Turns out backwards. His heels shot out from under him, his legs crumpled, and his head slammed hard against the marble floor, leaving him flat on his back and groaning halfway inside the cell. Now! Lou yelled. I charged the door. Lou had told me that the cell bars were motion sensitive. They snapped upward, determined to stop my escape, but they had not been designed to compensate for the weight of a Germanus lying across the threshold. The bars smashed Gunter against the ceiling like a hyperactive forklift, then lowered him again, their hidden mechanisms whirring and creaking in protest. Gunter gurgled in pain, his eyes crossed, his armour was thoroughly crushed. His ribs probably weren't in much better shape, but at least the bars hadn't gone straight through him. I did not want to witness that kind of mess, nor step through it. Get his sword, Lou ordered. I did. Then, using Gunter's body as a bridge across the slippery salve, we escaped into the hall, the eye of the security camera watching as we fled. Here, Lou gestured to what appeared to be a closet door. I kicked it in, realising only afterwards that 1, I had no idea why, and 2, I trusted Lou enough not to ask. Inside were shelves stacked with personal possessions, packs, clothes, weapons, shields. I wondered what unfortunate prisoners they had once belonged to. Leaning against a back corner were my bow and quivers. Aha! I grabbed them. With amazement I drew the arrow of Dodona from my otherwise empty quivers. Thank the gods! How are you still here? Thou art pleased to see me, the arrow noted. Well, I thought the Emperor would have taken you, or turned you into kindling. Nero is not worth a fig, said the arrow. He sees not my brilliance. Somewhere down the hall an alarm began to blare. The overhead lighting changed from white to red. Could you talk with your projectile later? Lou suggested. We have to move. Right, I said. Which way to the Fasces? Left, Lou said. So you go right. Wait, what? You said it's left. Right. Right? Odds bodkins. The arrow vibrated in my hand. Just listen to the gall. I'm going after the Fasces, Lou explained. You're going to find Meg. But my head spun. Was this a trick? Hadn't we agreed? I was ready for my close-up, my big heroic sacrifice. The Leo Tesophyline demands immortality for immortality. I've got it covered, Lou said. Don't worry. Besides, we Celts lost most of our gods long ago. I'm not going to stand by while another deity dies. But you're not... I stopped myself. I was about to say immortal. Then I considered how many centuries Lou had been alive. Would the Leon Tesophyline accept her life as payment? My eyes filled with tears. No, I said. Meg can't lose you. Lou snorted. I won't get myself killed if I can help it. I have a plan, but you need to move. Meg is in danger. Her room is 6 floors up, southeast corner. Follow the stairs at the end of the hall. I started to protest, but the arrow of Dodona buzzed in warning. I needed to trust Lou. I needed to cede the battle to the better warrior. Fine, I relented. Can I at least tape a sword to your arm? No time, she said. Too unwieldy. Wait, actually, that dagger over there. Unsheath it and put the blade between my teeth. How will that help? Probably won't, she admitted. But it'll look cool. I did as she asked. Now she stood before me as Bluebeard the pirate, cutlery-wielding terror of the 7 seas. Oh, rock, she rumbled around the blade. Then she turned and raced away. What just happened? I asked. Thou hast made a friend, the arrow said. Now refillest thy quivers, so thou shalt not shoot with me. Right. With shaky hands I scavenged as many intact arrows as I could find in the prisoner's storeroom and added them to my arsenal. Alarms kept blaring. The blood-red light was not helping my anxiety level. I started down the hall. I'd barely made it halfway when the arrow of Dodona buzzed. Look out! A mortal security guard in tactical riot gear rounded the corner, barreling toward me with his handgun raised. Not being well prepared, I screamed and threw Gunter's sword at him. By some miracle, the hilt hit him in the face and knocked him down. That is not normally how one uses a sword, the arrow said. Always a critic, I grumbled. Meg is in peril, he said. Meg is in peril, I agreed. I stepped over the mortal guard, now curled on the floor and groaning. Terribly sorry. I kicked him in the face. He stopped moving and began to snore. I ran on. I burst into the stairwell and took the concrete steps 2 at a time. The arrow of Dodona remained clutched in my hand. I probably should have put it away and readied my bow with normal missiles, but to my surprise I found that its running Shakespearean commentary boosted my shaky morale. From the floor above me, 2 Germani rushed into the stairwell and charged me with spears levelled. Now, lacking even Gunter's sword, I thrust out my free hand, shut my eyes and screamed as if this would make them go away, or at least make my death less painful. My fingers burned, flames roared. The 2 Germani yelled in terror, then were silent. When I opened my eyes, my hand was smoking but unharmed. Flames licked at the peeling paint on the walls. On the steps above me were 2 piles of ash where the Germani had been. Thou shouldst do that more often, the arrow advised. The idea made me sick to my stomach. Once I would have been delighted to summon the power to blowtorch my enemies, but now, after knowing Lou, I wondered how many of these Germani really wanted to serve Nero, and how many had been conscripted into his service, with no choice. Enough people had died. My grudge was with only one person, Nero, and one reptile, Python. Hurry, the arrow said with a new urgency. Yes, Nero has sent guards to fetch Meg. I wasn't sure how it had gleaned this information, if it was monitoring the building security system or eavesdropping on Nero's personal psychic hotline, but the news made me clench my teeth. There will be no Meg fetching on my watch, I growled. I slid the arrow of Dodona into one of my quivers and drew a missile of the non-Shakespearean variety. I bounded up the stairs. I worried about Lugaselwa, who must have been facing the Leontecephaline by now. I worried about Nico, Will and Rachel, whom I hadn't seen any sign of in my dreams. I worried about the forces of Camp Halfblood, who might be charging into a suicidal rescue mission at this very moment. Most of all, I worried about Meg. To find her, I would fight the entire tower by myself if I had to. I reached the next landing. Had Lou said 5 floors up? 6? How many had I already climbed? I hated numbers. I shouldered my way into another bland white corridor and ran in the direction I thought might be the southeast. I kicked open a door and discovered, try not to be too shocked, that I was entirely in the wrong place. A large control room glowed with dozens of monitors. Many showed live feeds of huge metal reservoirs, the Emperor's Greek fire vats. Mortal technicians turned and gawked at me. Germani looked up and frowned. Germanus, who must have been the commander, judging from the quality of his armour and the number of shiny beads in his beard, scowled at me with disdain. You heard the Emperor's order, he snarled at the technicians. Light those fires now, and guards, kill this fool. Chapter 25. Beware tech support. Don't press the naughty button. Welp, now you did it. How many times had I said those words? Kill this fool? We gods bandied about statements like that all the time, but we never gave thought to the cost. Like actual fools may die. And in this situation, that fool was me. A millisecond scan of the room showed me 10 enemies in various states of readiness. In the far corner, 4 Germani were scrunched together on a broken-down sofa, eating Chinese food from takeaway boxes. 3 technicians sat in swivel chairs, manning control consoles. They were human security, each with a sidearm, but they were too focused on their work to be an immediate threat. A mortal guard stood right next to me, looking surprised that I'd just pushed through the door he was monitoring. Oh, hello. A second guard stood across the room, blocking the other exit. That last left just the Germanus leader, who was now rising from his chair, drawing his sword. So many questions flashed through my mind. What did the mortal technician see through the mist? How would I get out of here alive? How did leader guy sit comfortably in that swivel chair while wearing a sword? Was that lemon chicken I smelled, and was there enough for me? I was tempted to say, wrong room, close the door and beat it down the hall. But since the technicians had just been ordered to burn down the city, that wasn't an option. Stop, I sang out of instinct. In the name of love. Everyone froze. Maybe because my voice had magic powers, or maybe because I was horribly off-key. I bow-punched the guy next to me in the face. If you have ever being punched by a fist holding a bow. I do not recommend it. The experience is like being hit with brass knuckles, except it hurts the archer's fingers much more. Door guy number 1 went down. Across the room, door guy number 2 raised his gun and fired. The bullet sparked off the door next to my head. Fun fact from a former god who knows acoustics. If you fire a gun in an enclosed space, you have just deafened everyone in that room. The technicians flinched and covered their ears. The Germanized Chinese takeaway boxes were flying. Even leader guy stumbled half out of his chair. My ears ringing, I drew my bow and shot 2 arrows at once, the first knocking the gun out of door guy 2's hand, the second pinning his sleeve to the wall. Yes, this was ex-archery god, still had some moves. The technicians returned their attention to their controls. The Chinese food contingent tried to extract themselves from their sofa. Leader guy charged me, his sword in both hands, pointing directly at my soft underbelly. Ha ha! I imitated a home plate slide. In my mind, the manoeuvre had seemed so simple. I would glide effortlessly across the floor, avoiding leader guy's thrust, veering between his legs as I fired at multiple targets from a supine position. If Orlando Bloom could do it in Lord of the Rings, why couldn't I? I neglected to consider that this floor was carpeted. I fell flat on my back and leader guy tripped over me, barreling headfirst into the wall. I did get off one shot. An arrow that skimmed across the nearest technician's control panel and knocked him out of his chair in surprise. I rolled aside as leader guy turned and hacked at me. Having no time to knock another arrow, I pulled one out and jabbed it into his shin. Leader guy howled. I scrambled to my feet and jumped onto the bank of control consoles. "Back off!" I yelled at the technicians, doing my best to aim one arrow at all 3 of them. Meanwhile, the Chinese food 4 were fumbling with their swords. Door guy number 2 had tugged his sleeve free of the wall and was hunting around for the pistol. One of the technicians reached for his gun. Nope. I fired a warning arrow, impaling the seat of his chair a millimetre from his crotch. I was loath to harm hapless mortals. Wow, I really wrote that sentence. But I had to keep these guys away from the naughty buttons that would destroy New York. I knocked 3 more arrows at once and did my best to look threatening. Get out of here. Go. The technicians looked tempted. It was, after all, a very fair offer, but their fear of me was apparently not as great as their fear of the Germani. Still growling in pain from the arrow in his leg, leader guy yelled, "Do your job!" The technicians lunged towards their naughty buttons. The 4 Germani charged me. Sorry, guys. I split my arrows, shooting each technician in the foot, which I hoped would keep them distracted long enough for me to deal with the Germani. I blasted the closest barbarian into dust with an arrow to the chest, but the other 3 kept coming. I leapt into their midst, bow punching, elbow jabbing, arrow poking like a maniac. With another lucky shot, I took down a second Chinese food eater, then wrestled 3 long enough to throw a chair at door guy number 2, who had just located his gun. One of the metal legs knocked him out cold. 2 lemon chicken splattered Germani remained. As they charged, I ran between them with my bow horizontal, at face level, smacking them each in the nose. They staggered back as I fired 2 more shots, point blank. It wasn't very sporting, but it was effective. The Germani collapsed into piles of dust and sticky rice. I was feeling pretty smug, until someone hit me in the back of the head. The room went red and purple. I crumpled to my hands and knees, rolled over to defend myself and found leader guy standing over me, the tip of his sword in my face. "Enough!" he snarled. His leg was soaked in blood. My arrow still stuck through his shin like a Halloween gag. He barked at the technicians. "Start those pumps!" In a last desperate attempt to intervene, I sang, "Don't do me like that," in a voice that would have made Tom Petty cringe. Leader guy dug his sword point into my Adam's apple. "Sing one more word and I will cut out your vocal cords." I frantically tried to think of more tricks I could pull. I'd been doing so well. I couldn't give up now. But lying on the floor, exhausted and battered and buzzing from adrenaline burnout, my head started to spin. My vision doubled. 2 leader guys floated above me. 6 blurry technicians with arrows in their shoes limped back to their control panels. "What's the hold-up?" yelled leader guy. We're trying, sir," said one of the techs. "The controls aren't... I can't get any readings." Both of leader guy's blurry faces glared down at me. "I'm glad you're not dead yet, because I'm going to kill you slowly." Strangely, I felt elated. I may have even grinned. Had I somehow short-circuited the control panels when I stomped across them? Cool. I might die, but I had saved New York. "Try unplugging it," said the second tech. "Then plug it back in." Clearly he was the senior troubleshooter from 1555 Ask Evil. Tech number 3 crawled under the table and rummaged with cords. "It won't work," I croaked. "Your diabolical plan has been foiled." "No, we're good now," announced tech number 1. "Readings are nominal." He turned to leader guy. "Shall I, Why are you even asking? Leader Guy bellowed. Do it. No, I wailed. Leader Guy dug his sword point a little deeper into my throat, but not enough to kill. Apparently he was serious about wanting a slow death for me. The technicians punched their naughty buttons. They stared at the video monitors expectantly. I said a silent prayer, hoping the New York metropolitan area would forgive me my latest, most horrible failure. The techs fiddled with buttons some more. Everything looks normal, said tech number 1, in a puzzled tone that indicated everything did not look normal. I don't see anything happening, said Leader Guy, scanning the monitors. Why aren't there flames? Explosions? I don't understand. Tech number 2 banged his monitor. The fuel isn't... It's not going anywhere. I couldn't help it. I began to giggle. Leader Guy kicked me in the face. It hurt so much I had to giggle even harder. What did you do to my fire vats? He demanded. What did you do? Me, I cackled. My nose felt broken. I was bubbling mucus and blood in a way that must have been extremely attractive. Nothing. I laughed at him. It was just so perfect. The thought of dying here, surrounded by Chinese food and barbarians, seemed absolutely perfect. Even Nero's doomsday machines had malfunctioned all by themselves. I had done more damage to the controls than I'd realised. Or somewhere deep beneath the building, something had gone right for a change, and I owed every troglodyte a new hat. The idea made me laugh hysterically, which hurt a great deal. Leader Guy spat. Now, I kill you. He raised his sword and froze. His face turned pale. His skin began to shrivel. His beard fell out whisker by whisker like dead pine needles. Finally his skin crumbled away, along with his clothes and flesh, until Leader Guy was nothing but a bleached white skeleton holding a sword in his bony hands. Standing behind him, his hand on the skeleton's shoulder, was Nico D'Angelo. That's better, Nico said. Now stand down. The skeleton obeyed, lowering his sword and stepping away from me. The technicians whimpered in terror. They were mortals, so I wasn't sure what they thought they'd just seen, but it was nothing good. Nico looked at them. Run away. They fell all over each other to comply. They couldn't run very well with arrows in their feet, but they were out of the door faster than you could say, Holy Hades, that dude just turned Leader Guy into a skeleton. Nico frowned down at me. You look awful. I laughed weakly, bubbling snot. I know, right? My sense of humour didn't seem to reassure him. Let's get you out of here, Nico said. This whole building is a combat zone, and our job isn't done. Chapter 26. Tower of Fun Times. Giggle with me as we climb. For Meg, glory, hats. As Nico helped me to my feet, Leader Guy collapsed into a pile of bones. I guess controlling an animated skeleton while hauling my sorry butt off the floor was too much effort even for Nico. He was surprisingly strong. I had to lean against him with most of my weight since the room was still spinning. My face was throbbing, and I was still suffering from a bout of near-death giggles. Where's Will? I asked. Not sure. Nico pulled my arm tighter around his shoulders. He suddenly said, I am needed, and darted off in another direction. We'll find him. Nico sounded worried nonetheless. What about you? How exactly did you, do all this? I suppose he was talking about the piles of ash and rice, the broken chairs and control panels, and the blood of my enemies decorating the walls and the carpet. I tried not to laugh like a lunatic. Just lucky? Nobody's that lucky. I think your godly powers are starting to come back more, like a lot more. Yay! My knees buckled. Where's Rachel? Nico grunted, trying to keep me on my feet. She was fine last I saw her. She's the one who sent me here to get you. She's been having visions like crazy for the last day now. She's with the Trogs. We have Trogs? Whee! I leaned my head against Nico's and sighed contentedly. His hair smelled like rain against stone, a pleasant scent. Are you smelling my head? He asked. Could you not? You're getting noseblood all over me. Sorry. Then I laughed again. Wow, I thought distantly. That kick to the face must have rattled my brain loose. Nico half dragged me down the corridor as he briefed me on their adventures since the Trog encampment. I couldn't concentrate, and I kept giggling at inappropriate moments. But I gleaned that, yes, the Trogs had helped them disable the Greek fire vats. Rachel had managed to summon help from Camp Half-Blood, and Nero's tower was now the world's largest urban warfare play structure. In return, I told him that Lou now had silverware for hands. Huh? She had gone to get Nero's fasces from the Leotaphysillion. What now? And I had to get the southeast corner of the residence wing to find Meg. Then at least Nico understood. You're 3 floors too low. I knew something was wrong. It'd be tough getting you through all the fighting. Every level is, well... We'd reached the end of the hallway. He kicked open a door and we stepped into the conference room of calamity. A half-dozen troglodytes bounced around the room fighting an equal number of mortal security guards. Along with their fine clothing and hats, the trogs all wore thick dark goggles to protect their eyes from the light, so they looked like miniature aviators at a costume party. Some guards were trying to shoot them, but the trogs were small and fast. Even when a bullet hit one of them, it simply glanced off their rock-like skin, making them hiss with annoyance. Other guards had resorted to riot batons, which weren't any more effective. The trogs leapt around the mortals, whacking them with clubs, stealing their helmets, and basically having a grand old time. My old friend, Gurr Fred, mighty of hats, corporate security chief, leaped from a light fixture, brained a guard, and then landed on the conference table and grinned at me. He topped his police hat with a new baseball cap that read Triumvirate Holdings. Good combat, Lester Apollo. He beat his tiny fists against his chest, and then ripped a speakerphone from the table and threw it in the face of an oncoming guard. Nico guided me through the chaos. We ducked through another doorway and ran straight into a Germanus, whom Nico impaled with his Stygian iron blade without even breaking stride. The Camp Half-Blood landing zone is just ahead. He told me as if nothing had happened. Landing zone? Yeah, pretty much everybody came to help. Even Dionysus? I would have paid real drachma to watch him turn our enemies into grapes and stomp on them. That was always good for a laugh. Well, no, not Mr. D, Nico said. You know how it is. Gods don't fight demigod battles. Present company accepted. I'm an exception. I kissed the top of Nico's head in delight. Please don't do that. Okay, who else is here? Tell me. I felt like he was guiding me towards my own birthday party and I was dying to know the guest list. Also, I felt like I was dying. Well, we'd arrived at a set of heavy mahogany sliding doors. Nico dragged one open and the setting sun nearly blinded me. Here we are now. A wide entrance ran along the entire side of the building, providing multi-million-dollar views of the Hudson River and New Jersey cliffs beyond, tinged burgundy in the sunset. The scene on the terrace was even more chaotic than the one in the conference room. Pegasi swooped through the air like giant seagulls, occasionally landing on the deck to unload new demigod reinforcements in orange Camp Half-Blood shirts. Nasty-looking celestial bronze harpoon turrets lined the rails, but most of them had been blown up or crushed. Lounge chairs were on fire. Our friends from camp were engaged in close quarters, fighting with dozens of Nero's forces. A few of the older demigod kids from Nero's imperial household, a squad of Germani, mortal security guards, and even a few Cynophacelae, wolf-headed warriors with nasty claws and rabid, slavering mouths. Against the wall stood a line of potted trees, similar to in the throne room. Their dryads had risen up to fight alongside Camp Half-Blood against Nero's oppression. "Come, sisters," cried a Ficus spirit, brandishing a pointy stick. "We have nothing to lose but our potting soil." In the centre of the chaos, Chiron himself clopped back and forth, his white stallion lower half draped with extra quivers, weapons, shields, and water bottles, like a combination demigod soccer mum and minivan. He wielded his bow as well as I could have ever seen, though that comment should be considered strictly off the record, while shouting encouragement and directions to his young charges. "Dennis, try not to kill enemy demigods or mortals. Okay, well, from now on then. Yvette, watch your left flank. Ben, whoa, watch out there, Ben!" The last comment was directed at a young man in a hand-powered wheelchair, his muscular upper body clad in a racing shirt, his driving gloves studded with spikes. His wild black hair flew in every direction, and as he turned, blades jutted from the rims of his wheels, mowing down anyone who dared to get close. His last 180 had almost caught Chiron's back legs, but unfortunately the old centaur was nimble. "Sorry," Ben grinned, seeming not sorry at all. Then he wheeled himself straight into a pack of Cynophacelae. "Dad!" Kayla came racing towards me. "Oh gods, what happened to you? Nico, where's Will?" "That's a great question," Nico said. "Kayla, can you take Apollo while I go look?" "Yeah, go." Nico raced off while Kayla dragged me to the safest corner she could find. She propped me in the only intact chaise lounge and began rummaging through her med pack. I had a lovely view of the sunset and the carnage in progress. I wondered if I could get one of Nero's servants to bring me a fancy drink decorated with a tiny umbrella. I started to giggle again, though what was left of my common sense whispered, stop it, this is not funny." Kayla frowned, clearly worried by my mirth. She dabbed some menthol-scented healing ointment on my busted nose. "Oh, Dad, I'm afraid you're going to have a scar." "I know," I giggled. "I'm so glad to see you." Kayla managed a weak smile. "You too. Been a crazy afternoon. Nico and those trogs infiltrated the building from below. The rest of us hit the tower on several levels at once, overwhelmed their security. The Hermes cabin disarmed a lot of the traps and turrets and whatnot. But we've still got fierce fighting, pretty much everywhere." "Are we winning?" I asked. A Germanus screamed as Sherman Yang, head counselor of Ares' cabin, threw him off the side of the building. "Hard to tell," Kayla said. "Chiron told the newbies this was a field trip. like a training exercise. They got to learn sooner or later. I scanned the terrace. Many of those first-time campers, some no older than 11 or 12, were fighting wide-eyed alongside their cabin mates, trying to imitate whatever their counsellors were doing. They seemed so very young, but then again they were demigods. They'd probably already survived numerous terrifying events in their short lives. And Kayla was right. Adventures would not wait for them to be ready. They had to jump in sooner, better than later. "Rosamie," Chiron called. "Sword higher, dear." The young girl grinned and lifted her blade, intercepting the strike of a security guard's baton. She smacked her foe across the face with the flat of her blade. "Do we have field trips every week? This is cool." Chiron gave her a pained smile, then continued shooting down enemies. Kayla bandaged my face as best she could, wrapping white gauze around my nose and making me go cross-eyed. I imagined I looked like the partially invisible man, which made me giggle again. Kayla grimaced. "Okay, we got to clear your head. Drink this." She lifted a vial to my lips. Nectar? Definitely not nectar. The taste exploded in my mouth. Immediately I realised what she was giving me and why. Mountain Dew, the glowing lime green elixir of perfect sobriety. I don't know what effect it has on mortals, but ask any supernatural entity and they will tell you that Mountain Dew's combination of sweetness, caffeine and otherworldly je ne sais quoi, peut-être radioactive taste is enough to bring complete focus and seriousness to any god. My eyesight cleared. My giddiness evaporated. I had zero desire to giggle. A grim sense of danger and impending death gripped my heart. Mountain Dew is the equivalent of the enslaved servant who would ride behind the emperor during his triumphal parades, whispering, "Remember, you are mortal, and you will die," to keep him from getting a big head. "Meg," I said, recalling what was most important. "I need to find Meg." Kayla nodded grimly. "Then that's what we'll do. I brought you some extra arrows. Thought you might need them. You are the most thoughtful daughter ever." She blushed right down to the red roots of her hair. "Can you walk? Let's get moving." We ran inside and turned down a corridor that Kayla thought might lead to the stairwell. We pushed through another set of doors and found ourselves in the dining room of disaster. Under different circumstances, it might have been a lovely place for a dinner party. A table big enough for 20 guests. A Tiffany chandelier. A huge marble fireplace and wood-panelled walls with niches for marble busts, each depicting the face of the same Roman emperor. If you guessed Nero, you win a Mountain Dew. Not part of the dinner plans, a red forest bull had somehow found its way into the room and was now chasing a group of young demigods around the table while they yelled insults and pelted it with Nero's golden plates, cups and cutlery. The bull didn't seem to realise it could simply smash through the dining table and trample the demigods, but I suspected it would eventually figure that out. "Ugh, these things," said Kayla when she saw the bull. I thought this would make an excellent description in the camp's encyclopedia of monsters. "Ugh, these things," was really all you needed to know about Tori Sylvestris. "They can't be killed," I warned as we joined the other demigods in the game of ring around the dining table. "Yeah, I know." Kayla's tone told me she'd already had a crash course in forest bulls during her field trip with fun. "Hey, guys," she said to her young comrades, "we need to lure this thing outside. If we can trick it off the edge of the terrace." At the opposite end of the room, the doors burst open. My son Austin appeared, his tenor sax at the ready. Finding himself right next to the bull's head, he yelped, "Whoa!" then let loose a dissonant squeak blat on the sax that would have made Coltrone proud. The bull lurched away, shaking its head in dismay, as Austin vaulted over the dining table and slid to our side. "Hey guys," he said, "we having fun yet?" "Austin," Kayla said with relief, "I need to lure this bull outside. Can you?" She pointed at me. "We playing past the Apollo?" Austin grinned. "Sure, come on Dad, I got you." As Kayla mustered the younger demigods and began shooting arrows to goad the bull into following her, Austin hustled me through a side door. "Where to, Dad?" He politely did not ask why my nose was bandaged or why my breath smelled of Mountain Dew. "I have to find Meg," I said. "3 stories up? Southeast corner?" Austin kept jogging with me down the corridor, but his mouth tightened in a thoughtful frown. "I don't think anybody's managed to fight their way up to that level yet, but let's do it." We found a grand circular stairwell that took us up one more floor. We navigated a maze of corridors, then shouldered through a narrow door into the hat room of horrors. Troglodytes had found the motherlode of haberdashery. The oversized walk-in closet must have served as Nero's seasonal coat check area because fall and winter jackets lined the walls. Shelves overflowed with scarves, gloves, and yes, every conceivable manner of hat and cap. The trogs rifled through the collection with glee, stacking hats 6 or 7 high on their heads, trying on scarves and galoshes to augment their incredibly civilized fashion sense. One trog looked up at me through his dark goggles, cords of drool hanging from his lips. Hats! I could only smile and nod and creep carefully around the edge of the closet, hoping none of the trogs mistook us for chapeau poachers. Thankfully, the trogs paid us no mind. We emerged from the other side of the closet into a marble foyer with a bank of elevators. My hopes rose. Assuming this was the main entrance to Nero's residential levels, where his most favoured guests would be received, we were getting closer to Meg. Austin stopped in front of a keypad with a golden inlaid SPQR symbol. Looks like this elevator gives you direct access to the Imperial apartments, but we need a keycard. Stairs? I asked. I don't know, he said. This close to the Emperor's quarters, I bet my passage up will be locked and booby-trapped. The Hermes cabin swept the lower stairwells, but I doubt they've made it this far. We're the first. He fingered the pads of his saxophone. Maybe I could open the elevator with the right sequence of tones. His voice trailed off as the elevator doors opened by themselves. Inside stood a young demigod with dishevelled blonde hair and rumpled street clothes. 2 golden rings gleamed on his middle fingers. Cassius's eyes widened when he saw me. Clearly he hadn't been expecting to run into me ever again. He looked like his last 24 hours had been almost as bad as mine. His face was grey, his eyes swollen and red from crying. He seemed to have developed a nervous twitch that travelled randomly around his body. His voice cracked. I didn't want... His hands trembling, he pulled off Meg's rings and offered them to me. Please. He looked past me. Clearly he just wanted to leave, to get out of this tower. I'll admit I felt a surge of anger. This child had cut off Lugaselwa's hands with Meg's own blades, but he was so small and so terrified. He looked like he expected me to turn into the beast, as Nero would have done, and punish him for what Nero had made him do. My anger dissolved. I let him drop Meg's rings into my palm. Go. Austin cleared his throat. Yeah, but first, how about that key card? He pointed to a laminated square hanging from a lanyard around Cassius's neck. It looked so much like a school ID that any kid might wear that I hadn't even registered it. Cassius fumbled to remove it. He handed it to Austin, and then he ran. Austin tried to read my expression. I take it you've met that kid before. Long, bad story, I said. Will it be safe for us to use his elevator pass? Maybe. Maybe not. Let's find out. Chapter 27. Can't fight in person? We can video conference. I'll kill you online. The wonders never ceased. The key card worked. The elevator did not incinerate us or drop us to our deaths. Unlike the previous elevator I'd taken, however, this one did have background music. We rose smoothly and slowly, as if Nero wanted to give us plenty of time to enjoy it. I've always thought you can judge the quality of a villain by his elevator music. Easy listening, pedestrian villainy with no imagination, smooth jazz, devious villainy with an inferiority complex, pop hits, aging villainy trying to desperately be hip. Nero had chosen soft classical, as in the lobby. Oh, well played. This was self-assured villainy. Villainy that said I already own everything and have all the power. Relax, you're going to die in a minute, so you might as well enjoy this soothing string quartet. Next to me, Austin fingered the keys of his saxophone. I could tell he, too, was worried about the soundtrack. Wish it was Miles Davis, he said. That would be nice. Hey, if we don't get out of this. None of that talk, I chided. Yeah, but I wanted to tell you. I'm glad we had some time together, like time. His words warmed me even more than Paul Blofus's lasagna. I knew what he meant. While I'd been Lester Papadopoulos, I hadn't spent much time with Austin or any of the people I'd stayed with, really. But it had been more than we'd ever spent together when I was a god. Austin and I had got to know each other, not just as god and mortal or father and son, but as two people working side by side, helping each other get through our often messed up lives. That had been a precious gift. I was tempted to promise we'd do this more often if we survived, but I'd learned that promises are precious. If you're not absolutely sure you can keep them, you should never make them, much like chocolate chip cookies. Instead, I smiled and squeezed his shoulder, not trusting myself to speak. Also, I couldn't help thinking about Meg. If so little time with Austin had been this meaningful, how could I possibly quantify what my adventures with Meg had meant to me? I'd shared almost my entire journey with that silly, brave, infuriating, wonderful girl. I had to find her. The elevator doors slid open. We stepped into a hallway with a floor mosaic depicting a triumphal procession through a burning New York cityscape. Clearly, Nero had been planning for months, perhaps years, to unleash his inferno no matter what I did. I found this so appalling and so in character for him, I couldn't even get angry. We stopped just before the end of the hall, where it split into a T. From the corridor to the right came the sounds of many voices in conversation, glasses clinking, even some laughter. From the corridor on the left I heard nothing. Austin motioned for me to wait. He carefully removed a long brass rod from the body of his sax. He had all sorts of non-standard attachments on his instrument, including a bag of exploding reeds, tone hole cleaners that doubled as zip ties, and a stiletto knife for stabbing monsters and unappreciative music critics. The rod he chose now was fitted with a small curved mirror on one end. He edged this into the hallway like a periscope, studied the reflections, and then pulled it back. "Party room on the right," he whispered in my ear. "Full of guards. Bunch of folks that look like guests. Library on the left. Looks empty. If you need to get to the southeast corner to find Meg, you'll have to go straight through that crowd." I clenched my fists, ready to do whatever was necessary. From the party room came the voice of a young woman, making an announcement. I thought I recognized the polite and terrified tone of the dryad Arika. "Thank you all for your patience," she told the crowd. "The Emperor is just finishing up a few matters in the throne room, and the minor disruptions on the lower floors will be taken care of very soon. In the meantime, please enjoy cake and beverages while we wait for Her voice cracked. "The burning to start." The guests gave her a polite smattering of applause. I readied my bow. I wanted to charge into that crowd, free Arika, shoot everybody else, and stomp on their cake. Instead, Austin grabbed my arm and pulled me back a few steps towards the elevator. "There's too many of them," he said. "Let me cause a distraction. I'll draw as many as I can into the library and lead them on a chase. Hopefully they'll clear a path for you to get to Meg." I shook my head. "It's too dangerous. I can't let you." "Hey," Austin smirked. For a moment I glimpsed my own old godly self-confidence in him. That look that said, "I'm a musician, trust me." "Dangerous is part of the job description. Let me do this. You hang back until I draw them out. Then go find our girl. I'll see you on the other side." Before I could protest, Austin ran to the junction of the corridor and yelled, "Hey, idiots! You're all gonna die!" Then he put his mouthpiece to his lips and blasted out, "Pop Goes the Weasel." Even without the insults, that particular song, when played by a child of Apollo, will cause a stampede 100% of the time. I pressed myself against the wall by the elevator as Austin dashed towards the library, pursued by 50 or 60 angry, screaming party guests and Gemini. I could only hope Austin found a second exit from the library, or else this would be a very short chase. I forced myself to move. "Find our girl," Austin had said. Yes, that was the plan. I sprinted to the right and into the party room. Austin had cleared out the place completely. Even Arika seemed to have followed the rampaging Pop Goes the Weasel mob. Left behind were dozens of high cocktail tables covered in linen, sprinkled with glitter and rose petals, and topped with balsa wood centerpiece sculptures of Manhattan going up in painted flames. Even for Nero, I found this over the top. The sideboard was loaded with every conceivable party appetizer, plus a multi-layered red and yellow flame motif cake. A banner across the back wall read, "Happy Inferno." Along the other wall, plate glass windows, no doubt heavily insulated, looked over the city, allowing for a beautiful view of the promised firestorm, which now, bless the trogs and their magnificent hats, would not be happening. In one corner, a small stage had been set up with a single microphone and a stand of instruments, a guitar, a lyre and a violin. Oh, Nero. As a sick joke, he had intended to fiddle while New York burned. No doubt his guests would have laughed and clapped politely as the city exploded and millions perished to the tune of "This Land Is Your Land." And who were these guests? The Emperor's billionaire golf buddies? Adult demigods who had been recruited for his post-apocalyptic empire? Whoever they were, I hoped Austin stampeded them straight into a mob of angry troglodyte shareholders. It was fortunate no one was left in the room. They would have faced my wrath. As it was, I shot an arrow into the cake, which wasn't a very satisfying experience. I marched through the room and then, impatient with the sheer size of the place, began to jog. At the far end, I kicked through a doorway, my bow drawn and ready, but found only another empty hallway. I recognized this area from my dreams, though. Finally, I had reached the imperial family's living area. Where were the guards? The servants? I decided I didn't care. Just up ahead would be Meg's door. I ran. "Meg!" I barreled into her bedroom. No one was there. The bed had been perfectly made up with a new comforter. The broken chairs had been replaced. The room smelled of pine sol. So even Meg's scent had been erased along with any sign of her rebellion. I'd never felt so depressed and alone. "Hello?" said a small, tinny voice to my left. I shot an arrow at the nightstand, cracking the screen of a laptop computer, showing Nero's face on a live video call. "Oh no," he said dryly, his image now fractured and pixelated. "You got me." His image jiggled, too large and off-centre, as if he were holding the camera phone himself and not used to using it. I wondered if the Emperor had to worry about cell phones malfunctioning, the way demigods did, or if the phone would broadcast his location to monsters. Then I realised there was no monster within 500 miles worse than Nero. I lowered my bow. I had to unclench my jaw in order to speak. Where is Meg? Oh, she's quite well. She's here with me in the throne room. I imagine you'd stumble in front of that monitor sooner or later, so we could chat about your situation. My situation? You're under siege. We've ruined your Inferno party. Your forces are being routed. I'm coming for you now, and if you so much as touch a rhinestone on Meg's glasses, I'll kill you. Nero laughed gently, as if he had no concerns in the world. I didn't catch the first part of his response because my attention was drawn to a flash of movement in the hallway. Screechbling, CEO of the Troglodytes, materialized in Meg's bedroom doorway, grinning with delight, his colonial outfit covered with monster dust and tufts of red bull fur, his tricorn hat topped with several new headwear acquisitions. Before Screechbling could say anything that would announce his presence, I gave him a subtle shake of the head, warning him to stay put, out of range of the laptop camera. I didn't want to give Nero any more information about our allies than necessary. It was impossible to read Screechbling's eyes behind his dark goggles, but being a smart trog, he seemed to understand. Nero was saying, "Quite a different situation. Have you heard of succinid gas, Apollo?" I had no idea what that was, but Screechbling almost leapt out of his buckle shoes, his lips curled in a distasteful sneer. "Ingenious, really," Nero continued. "The Persians used it against our troops in Syria. Sulfur, bitumen, a few other secret ingredients. Horribly poisonous, causes excruciating death, especially effective in enclosed spaces like tunnels or buildings." My neck hairs stood on end. Nero, "No." "Oh, I think yes," he countered, his voice still pleasant. "You've robbed me of my chance to burn down the city, but surely you didn't think that was my only plan. The backup system is quite intact. You've done me the favour of gathering the entire Greek camp in one place. Now, with just a push of a button, everything below the throne room level." "Your own people are down here," I yelled, shaking with fury. Nero's distorted face looked pained. "It's unfortunate, yes, but you forced my hand. At least my darling Meg is here and some of my other favourites. We will survive. What you don't seem to realise, Apollo, is that you can't destroy bank accounts with a bow and arrows. All my assets, all the power I've built up for centuries, it's all safe. And Python is still waiting for your corpse to be delivered to him. So let's make a deal. I will delay releasing my Sassanid surprise for, say, 15 minutes. That should be enough time for you to reach the throne room. I'll let you in, and only you." "And Meg?" Nero looked baffled. "As I said, Meg is fine. I would never hurt her." "You," I choked on my rage, "you do nothing but hurt her." He rolled his eyes. "Come on up and we'll have a chat. I'll even..." He paused and then laughed as if he'd had a sudden inspiration. "I'll even let Meg decide what to do with you. Surely that's more than fair. Your other option is that I release the gas now, then come down and collect your corpse at my leisure, along with those of your friends." "No." I tried to curb the desperation in my voice. "No, I'm coming up." "Excellent." Nero gave me a smug smile. "Ta-ta." The screen went dark. I faced Screechbling. He stared back, his expression grim. "Sassanid gas is very bad," he said. "I see why Red Priestess sent me here." "Red? You mean Rachel? She told you to find me?" Screechbling nodded. "She sees things, as you said, the future, the worst enemies, the best hats. She told me to come to this place." His voice conveyed a level of reverence that suggested Rachel Elizabeth Dare would be getting free skink soup for the rest of her life. I missed my Pythia. I wish she had sought me out herself, rather than sending Screechbling. But since the Trog could run at supersonic speed and tear through solid rock, I guessed it made sense. The CEO scowled at the laptop's dark, cracked monitor. "Is it possible is bluffing about the gas?" "No," I said bitterly. "Nero doesn't bluff. He likes to boast, then follow through. He'll release that gas as soon as he has me in the throne room." 15 minutes, Screechbling mused. "Not much time. Try to stall him. I will gather the Trogs. We will disable this gas, or I will see you in under heaven." "But..." Screechbling vanished in a cloud of dust and bull hair. I tried to steady my breathing. The Troglodytes had come through for us once before when I didn't believe they would. Still, we weren't underground now. Nero would not have told me about his poison gas delivery system if it was easy to find or disarm. If he could fumigate an entire skyscraper at the touch of a button, I didn't see how the Trogs would have time to stop him, or even get our forces safely out of the building. And when I faced the Emperor, I had no chance of beating him, unless Lou had succeeded in getting his fasces from the Leontocephaline, and that mission also seemed impossible. On the other hand, I didn't have much choice but to hope. I had a part to play, stall Nero, find Meg. I marched out of the bedroom. 15 minutes. Then I would end Nero, or he would end me.